Good evening. There's an empty chair there, so that's pretty cool.
You're ready to.
All right. Well, I really got to work on the timing of when I actually start the video, but good evening. Probably should mute that so I don't hear myself. Anyway, yeah, it is the 30th of October. It's the evening before Halloween. I'm getting my notes open down here. And what do we have? Well, tonight we have, I'm doing, I guess, something a little bit different. I'll be still doing music, as usual. But I have a stupid amount of candy off to my right, just sort of scattered across my desk. And while going through the music for the week, I will simultaneously be, well, not simultaneously, obviously kind of perhaps alternate a little bit, but I'll be discussing some Russian candies, which some of them that I prefer more than others, and just kind of talking about some of those, because obviously tomorrow is Halloween. Now, I don't want to talk about Halloween too much because Lord knows it's a dangerous and scary and satanic holiday here, and the government is super worried about things like that, which is kind of funny because Maslenitsa is a pagan holiday here in Russia and like openly supported by the government, so not very Christian, if you know what I mean. But I guess that's really neither here nor there. Do as I say, not as I do, one of those types of things. That's more political. Let's keep to the music for now, at least. As we get a little bit further in, who knows? Who knows where the evening will take us? What do we have? We got 16 releases this week. And as I put down in the little thingamajigger, the description, I guess is what it's called, it is definitely leaning a little bit more into the rock and metal. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're going to start out with rap and hip hop. There are 3 releases. Then we're going to electronic music. We've got 1 for you this week, 3 for pop and indie, and then, if my mathematics are correct, that would be 9 in rock and metal. So it is going to be a little bit heavier, although I will say with rock and metal this week, it's kind of balanced. It's not all like super heavy. There is actually some stuff that is a little bit on the lighter side, if you will. But obviously, we have to get there first. So let me go ahead and get us... Before we get started, before we actually get to the music, these are not Russian candies. These are Reese's Pieces that I brought back from the States last year. So they're probably past their expiration date, but I do love Reese's Pieces. I'm ET phone home or something, right? So we'll get to the Russian ones in a second, but I've got the Reese's Pieces there as kind of a palate cleanser, if you will. So let me go ahead and get us over to Transition, our first album. Or I guess it's an EP, isn't it? Oh, God, I hate when the side thing pops up on Spotify, but whatever. Anyway, so our first release here is the artist Kizaru. Now, Kizaru we actually have seen already. It says it's a single. It's 3 tracks. I'm going to consider this an EP. We'll talk about it a little bit. Kizaru is actually an artist that we saw in the second quarter. If I remember correctly, he released an album, Simba, back then, which is pretty good. I enjoyed that well enough. And the reason I'm calling this an EP, because this is Kizaru's attempt at UK drill music, which evidently is something that he made fun of other rappers for a few years back. And he forgot that the internet never forgets such things. So in 2025, when Kizaru is now attempting his hand at the UK drill sound, the internet is, the Russian rap scene online is being quite merciless when it comes to their commentary towards him in that regard. I don't know. Simba this year, earlier in the year, was the first thing I had ever heard by Kizaru, because Russian rap is like not my forte or my go-to. So I'm not super familiar with him by any measure. But we got 3 tracks here, and I don't really have any major complaints with him. I'm just going to play a little bit here. I'm just going to get us started. It's nothing amazing, but beats are good. Rhymes are normal. It's nothing memorable in the end, but it's probably not worth the online hate that he's getting. But then again, that's what the online Russian rap community does 90% of the time. Just crap on others.
Мы подъехали и закрыли им всем шоу. Да, мы бизнесмены, мы не бегаем с ножом. Улица давно пропахла вашим пиздежом. Какой open mind, они смотрят телевизион. Декрайдинг у них в моде, белые друг другу лижут. Кто кого сегодня пизжит, каждый бля обижен. Мы выбрались из хижин. Ты кто вообще по жизни?
Definitely not my favorite Russian rapper, but also not the worst.
Белые империс, теперь белые в Париже.
I feel like that's it. I'm not going to talk about Kai Angel or Nine Mice this evening. So.
Я все скинул, мой там Питер, heavy.
I mean, it's really short. If I spend too much time with any of these tracks, I'll just play the entire thing. I don't want to sit here and listen to Kizaru for 7 minutes, but yeah.
Веду себя как бездомный, но ко мне обращаются сэр. Там, где есть сыр, значит там всегда будут крысы. Я добрый, но этот мир рождает в башке жуткие мысли. Мы не считаем, сколько телок, мы считаем лишь числа. Белые пошли в церковь рано, просто я им приснился. Есть за что бороться, есть за что отправить их в hell. Мне не нужна их помощь, на I don't need no help. Мне Kizaru я не слушаю, ведь он странный чел. Вся моя жизнь реальна, их жизнь реальный мем. Мне не звонят узнать, как дела, они звонят за денег. Думают я...
So yeah, I mean, anything amazing? No, but it's also not horrible. And I feel like for a rap release, it's enjoyable. It's pretty standard, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I didn't even mention that the EP's name is Speedy Gonzales. Obviously, I mentioned the artist Kizaru's name a number of times, but yeah, Speedy Gonzales EP Kizaru is the first release there. All right, moving on. I'm guessing this young whippersnapper here, GRILLYAZH, which is how you pronounce his name. I'm assuming that this is what he thinks music sounded like 25 years ago, based on the album title Y2K. He's a bit off. He's off by about a decade or so, but that's forgivable. It's forgivable. That's probably around the time he was born, so probably won't really remember that. Anyway, yeah, this is the pop trap sound of the late 2000s, early 2010s. Reminded me a lot of T.I. I'm just going to throw that out there. And I loved T.I. back in the day, and I still can get on board with some T.I., so... Like, if you were alive and listening to rap music, late 2000s, early 2010s, this is going to be a very familiar sound. Not Y2K era. A little bit later. I mean, this just screams T.I. to me. What you know about that, right? Incredibly short EP, right? I mean, it's technically a little bit longer than Kizaru's, but it's also one track longer. I still love this sound, so... It does almost feel like he just straight up lifted the beats. I mean, this is Timbaland, right? This is 100% a Timbaland beat. Promiscuous Girl. tweaked slightly. But I mean, I guess that's fine. Like, those are classics at this point in time for a reason. I assume they're classics at this point. So, I mean, you get the idea, right? Those are 3 out of the 4 tracks. You know what the sound is like. Short, sweet, very tight. I absolutely love that sound. So the EP Y2K by the artist GRILLYAZH. Hey. And I don't actually have a candy for that, but I kind of wish I did. There is actually a candy here in Russia called GRILLYAZH, which has these like little crunchy things in it. It's really only notable for that. I don't know if that's why he named it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's talk about the final release in rap and hip hop this week, which is a big one. And it's actually one that came out a while back. Yeah, at the beginning of the month. And kind of played around with it a little bit. I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. This is Опять старое by Заточка, which is like a shank type thing. I'm going to talk about this a little bit before I play it. This is country rap out of Russia. So just wrap your head around that for a second. It's probably the last thing that I would have expected to talk about here, myself included. I'm assuming none of you ever expected me to talk about country rap. But evidently Zatotchka has been doing this for this is their 5th album now. That's why the Pat is highlighted in the word Опять. Pat being the Russian word for 5. Опять meaning the word for again, like old times again, or back to the old ways, or I don't know exactly how they want to translate this album title, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, this is their 5th album. They've been doing this for 7 years. This is obviously much more of a niche sound here in Russia than it is in the United States, which is probably why it's the first time I've heard of this group. But my thing is, even though this is their 5th album and they've been doing this for the better part of a decade at this point in time, it still feels kind of like a gimmick. While the songs themselves are done well, lyrically they feel like joke songs in the same way that Tenacious D was a joke band. This is music for a specific subset of individual, and these songs for those individuals are going to click, and they're going to be entertaining time and time again. But for most people, myself included, I kind of lost myself down here in my notes because they're all over the place. The cleverness of the song kind of just fades with repeated listens. What are the songs about? Well, it's basically the middle-aged version of Tenacious D. Song about how all bald men look the same, about growing up in the 90s. Songs about dicks, songs about boobs, songs where the swear words are specifically accentuated, which feels like it's more for comic effect than it is actually to emphasize an actual emotional punch. It's just like, we're swearing. It's kind of like how 10-year-olds think South Park is funny. It's like you don't really understand what it's there for. It's just swearing is funny, I guess. There are other things as well. There's a whole track about how we're too old now, but if it was younger, we would throw a cigarette at a cop and we would beat up the femboys. And it's just like, is that clever? Is that entertaining? The first time I listened to this, it was like, okay, yeah, this is mildly entertaining. The second time I listened to it, it's like, this fucking is just really immature. If I was 15, I'm sure this would be hilarious. But again, this is like for middle-aged 15-year-old men. So the cleverness fades with each listen. Again, that's assuming you understand the Russian lyrics. If you don't understand the Russian lyrics, then this could just be like a kind of a fun, weird little country, a very, very niche thing, Russian country rap. But it got me thinking, with like the sort of the cleverness of the lyrics starting to fade. Is that what Tom MacDonald fans feel? Like the Canadian rapper who's a MAGA head or whatever. Does he actually have any fans? I don't know. Yeah. In my notes, as I was listening to this, I wrote, this is the type of music that will likely be blasting out of the sound system of a motorcycle the size of a sedan that has an overweight, balding office worker going through a midlife crisis listening to cool music, thinking he's going to be appealing to somebody half of his age. So, yes, that. And I'm if I do ever hear that happening, I'm going to feel vindicated in that description. I don't know. Like I said, it's worth a listen. It is entertaining the first time. Some people might love this. But yeah, it's probably not worth 2 listens. Again, it's over an hour long too. That's normally a good thing. Here, it does actually kind of drag a little bit. But in terms of the sound,
Это чё, Шандыбин? Это чё, Пригожин? Это чё, Чета Коленко? Куценко Гоша? Это чё, Денис Майданов? Пацаны, я в шоке. В этой группе рэп читает Доминик Джокер. Это чё, антиреклама лошадиной силы? Это чё, Дмитрий Нагиев, только некрасивый? Чё смеяться, это рак на стадии поздней. Куда скинуть на лечение, или это позднее? Чё, гулять пошел, а там токсичные осадки? Это чё, Руслан Белый до пересадки? Это чё, Сергей Мазаев? Акунин Боря, ты чё, у костра заснул? Или проспорил? Это чё, лысый из Бразерс, тип из непары? Здравствуйте.
That's a bunch of jokes about bald men all looking the same.
Послушайте, дамы, толкую, о чем пред вами в могиле лежит.
Stereotypical, but the country vibe.
Сильно, но все еще такой ничего. Последний нормальный мужик. Имел квадратную челюсть, глаза цвета льда и рост 185.
Musically, like the sound that they have is done very well. I wish they would do something a little bit more serious with it. Maybe on other albums they do. But then it would be very odd that they would just have this album out of nowhere. So. Again, that kind of like pop country Russian rap thing. Very, very weird sound. But it could be really good. It's just kind of wasted on these adolescent songs.
Сам себя, как Брюс Уиллис. Ставят часы, как на картинах Дали. Все мои друзья остепенились. Все мои герои сдались. Пускай сердце повторит, что ты прав. Не списывай война.
Like it's a pop country rap. This is lyrically, this is probably the most egregious in my opinion, but this is that one of like, well, if we were younger, we. Like it's mildly entertaining, but then there are just lines just like, might have been funny like 15 years ago, but 2025.
Давайте не будем озвучивать тем уважаемым леди, что таких, как они, мы в Таиланде снимали за бутерброд. И тот здоровенный со шрамом мужик совсем не факт ведь, что педик. Давайте не будем об этом кричать в переходе метро.
So, I mean, again, the sound, well done. And there are some good tracks on here, relatively speaking. There are even a few that lyrically are, like, a little bit more serious. But by and large, that's not the overall atmosphere of the music. So.
Жизнь удивительная штука, если вдуматься. Хотя каждый хочет в прошлом что-то поменять. Бутылка битая прошла близко от лица. Но слава богу, роза та цвела не для меня.
Yeah, anyways, that's the idea. It's Russian pop country rap, or I guess rearrange those adjectives in whatever order you want to put them in. If you don't understand Russian, it's pop country rap that you can't understand. So I guess do with that what you will. If you do understand Russian, then lyrically, yeah, kind of a mess in my opinion. Not really becoming of middle-aged men, but I guess not everyone ages gracefully or out of certain mindsets. So, but yeah, music. I would love to see these guys do a full-on sort of serious, an album to actually fit the album artwork, and I think the album artwork's great. It feels like they should lean into the country vibe. Like you could put the country vibe in like the post-Soviet space, and I think that's something that would be really interesting to see, because like country music outside of its natural environment often feels like it shouldn't exist, but when used in the right context, as we have seen with other artists in popular music across the United States, across various genres, it can work. It can work with metal, it can work with pop, it can work with rap, we've seen. So why not export it or import it, I guess, from here, and do something with it. But anyway, the album is Опять, старое, and the artist is Заточка. That's all for rap and hip-hop. Moving on to electronic music. We have one release, and this is Ratio et Caritas by the artist Dubree. Now, the artist is from the sort of science city of Chernogolovka in the Moscow Oblast. And growing up and living down there, they would do these stargazing evenings where they'd bring a bunch of telescopes outside and people would just look at the stars. And obviously it's a science city, an old Soviet science city. So, you know, that was the people quite knowledgeable about it. Well, the artist one evening decided to bring out some speakers and put some ambient music along to the stargazing. And so this love of stargazing and electronic music are at the core of this album, which the album title is Latin for reason and love. The reason Latin being chosen because it's the language of science worldwide. Musically, this is somewhere between IDM and ambient music. It is kind of a stargazing album. There's a bit of left field electronic music thrown in there as well. Lots of samples from Soviet sci-fi films kind of further accent the reaching for the cosmos vibe that you're going to find here. I'm just going to use a quote from the artist here about the album, and then I'm just going to play it. In searching for my sound, I was inspired by the 1970s. There you had the dawn of dub music, the beginnings of electronic music, which would only be called such a decade later, piloted spaceflight, the development of sci-fi cinema, which occasionally bordered on the ridiculously naive. So that 70s sound, I guess, is what keep in mind, and the dawning of the space age, if you will. But these are rather long tracks. They do unfold. It's a very peaceful album. I feel like from week to week there are releases that come out that I just kind of listen to more when I'm getting ready for bed, because they're very... This feels a little bit like Stranger Things, but it's kind of a very pop culture reference type thing. just the specific notes, but like albums which are, when you listen to them, you're more likely to kind of sink into your thoughts and like get more introspective, or what, I guess that's what stargazing does as well. So yeah, this music fits that perfectly. Fits stargazing perfectly. Going to sleep. I hate to say that about albums, but sometimes it's true. Like there are certain albums, just like the way that they're put together and the way that they flow and how they affect you, like how they affect your mind and your state of consciousness, that they kind of lend themselves toward that. So I hate to recommend albums as sleep albums, but this is a good one to kind of just, or it's November now, basically, so probably not the best time for stargazing, at least for long periods of time, but when the weather gets warmer, 6 months from now, maybe remember this album. But yeah, then you have other tracks that are a little bit more into that early sci-fi, kind of the dawn of the era of piloted spaceflight, that type of energy. So candy ready. There was one of those clips from an old Soviet sci-fi film. I mean, each of these tracks has been definitely different. The first track is, I mean, like it's a very, got a different energy. Obviously, they're not all, this one and the one before were more upbeat, but that's not true necessarily throughout the whole of it. Like Expedition here is also a little bit more laid back. The remix of the opening track 2 makes for a nice bookmark because, again, if you have the album on repeat, they kind of seamlessly flow into one another, or like they transition very well. So, but yeah, I mean, you can see, right, at the beginning it's definitely more distant, not cold necessarily, but it there's more of the space feel to it. And then already in the second half, we push more into that sort of manned space flight, exploratory phase, if we will. So, anyway, I think this is one of the tracks that has like a lot of the film. Or maybe it's Sidri all day. I don't remember. One of them, there's like an extensive section of some audio from a Soviet film, which I do not know, but which again fits the vibe very well, talking about reaching light speed and everything like that. But that is the album Ratio et Caritas. It's Latin, so I'm probably mispronouncing that. And the artist is Dubree, but that's the only electronic album that I have this week, but it is a very good one. It is a very good one, and it's definitely worth a listen. All right, I'm going to transition back to just the camera here. We're going to take just a break because I'm going to eat some candy. super exciting, I know. So the first one I've got here is probably the most touristic or kind of foreigner style one. It's from the candy factory Red October, Krasny Oktyabr. It's got the little bears on it. What's the name of it again? Yeah, Mishka Kasalapy. Just like, this is honestly a disappointing candy. This is not one of my favorites. I guess if this was a trick or treat type of situation, this would be the trick candy. It's not bad. Just like some wafer in there. But it's also not interesting. Just kind of like everything. This is actually one of the big problems with Russian candies. Not to say that it's candy, right? There are only so many permutations that you can do with wafers, chocolate, caramel, nuts, right? But the packaging of the mishki is just so, I was like, it's so tight. Everything just kind of merges together. The outer chocolate shell kind of eclipses all of the taste of everything that's inside of it. I mean, if you're drinking a metric ton of tea and like you have one of these, then it's fine because you're not really paying attention. It's just something sweet, which I feel like it is a good tea sweet. It's like one of those that's just kind of sweet. You don't really think about it while you're eating it, but I bought them a few days ago, already kind of preparing for the stream and Halloween, and I had not eaten them for a long time, and in retrospect, I hope that having this conversation right now will, in the future, help me remember not to buy them again. Now, the other one, the Rotfront Batonchik. This, I think, is an absolute classic, and it's one of those. Again, if you're tuning in and you're expecting music, this is going to be very disorienting, but bear with me. I don't actually know what this. I don't know how best to describe it. This is, I do take them back to the States when I go, and I have a friend, Max, who is now a UK citizen, and he lives there with his wife, and it's one of those things where anytime somebody comes to visit him, like, she loves these things. Like, you can't find anything quite like it. Not to say that it's some sort of mind-blowing. It's just like this little weird, I don't know what it's made from. It's not chalky. It's like kind of dry fudge. But not as thick and creamy. I really don't know how to describe this. It's kind of nutty. It's mostly chocolatey. It's kind of nutty. There's different flavor variations. I went with the original one. But, I don't know. There are a few Russian candies which you can't really compare to stuff. Maybe there are things like this in Europe. I don't know. But in the States, I can't think of a single candy. This, I love. I think this is a fantastic candy. I enjoy this. This is the Rotfront Batonchik. I know some people here hate it. So, the other thing that's worth noting is there used to be 3 candy factories. The Red October factory, Krasny Oktyabr, the Rotfront factory, and then the Babayevsky chocolate factory here in Moscow. And these used to be one of those things that it's all just one company now. Again, obviously for most of you watching, this doesn't matter, but it's kind of like in the States where there's a number of different kind of candy groups, but they all, I think, more or less belong to one umbrella corporation at this point in time. So anyway, back to the music. Oh, I do actually, since we're on the Halloween theme. This is a beverage. I've got my I'm in the theme. I've got my Jason Voorhees t-shirt. I've got it's all of the stuff, all of the scary stuff. But let's get back to music. Unless my head is out of frame. What's up with that? Anyway. Up next, we are into pop and indie music. And there are 3 releases here. And it's going to be kind of some short ones here. First up, we have the EP Requisite by the group Noroyal. This is just sort of short, energetic indie music, indie pop, indie rap. Not really sure what to qualify it as. Musically, it revolves around these Afro, Brazilian, Latin rhythms, which are accentuated by more standard electropop approaches musically. Yeah. What was interesting is that this is evidently the 3rd release by the group for the year. They had an LP back in February and an EP in August. So I am actually glad that I did finally catch something by them, because it's quite interesting.
Солнце еще не взошло, но твой как кто-то орал внизу. С неба текло липкий воздух так мелко, как был будто тирамису. Голова кругом вертелась, я держал ее на весу. Уснул тело в окно, внизу никого, запотело стекло. Может, была это осень, может быть, это был ветер. Я крикнул наружу, но жаль, мне никто не ответил. На лице ноль эмоций, может, я просто бредил. Кроме того, что болело чело, ничего и не запримешь.
Right. There we go. Yeah. It's got a very, I guess, yeah, South American type of energy here. All 3 of the tracks have kind of a different energy. I mean, the energy is always high, but I guess maybe tone or atmosphere is a more appropriate word there. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what I was expecting from this album after the artwork, but not quite this. So I definitely was pleasantly surprised by these 3 tracks. Like, just again, musically, very upbeat, very energetic. Again, it's indie. Lyrically, it feels like it's borderline indie rap, but from most of the music perspective, it does feel more like pop or something like that. So. And then again, all of those Latin-esque rhythms in there. So just a interesting 3-track EP. That is Requisite by the group Noroyal. Up next, we have another EP, С временем это пройдет, or With Time That Will Pass, by the group Bukva F. 15 minutes of twee indie rock turns an eye to the innocent, carefree days of youth here in the Russian capital, with the assurance that those times will come again in one form or another, which, yeah, it's great. I really hope that's the case. Looking forward to sometime in the future, a summertime in the city that feels like it did back in 2015, or maybe 2018. That was a good song. But musically, this just has a lot of that. Again, it's twee. So
Все ускользает, выпадает из рук, словно горсть камней. Ты бежишь быстрей к победе, но бежишь ты как в воде. Научили нас мечтать, но как все это воплощать? На вопросы нет ответов, что тут делать и как. Ты все делаешь напрасно.
if you listen to indie music, you're familiar with the sound, I'm sure. What's the two sisters? There's like a group that I cannot put my finger on right now.
Большой прием, то, что встречу я тебя здесь один на миллион. Ты в каждой машине, ты в каждом ларьке играешь в прятки. Зачем, зачем? Не найду тебя.
Belle and Sebastian will work, but
Найду тебя. Раз, два, три. Иду тебя искать.
I don't know if I'm gonna find it. Anyway.
Не наступит весна на Садовом кольце. Утопаю в озерах на вашем лице. Глаза кричат, просят остаться. Приятно с тобой опять попрощаться. Ступит весна на Тургеневской площади мимо меня. Снежный
A lot of references to the city of Moscow across this EP as well too, which is familiar with the city. It's kind of a nice little call out to various parts of the city. So yeah, you get the sense. Twee. That is the group Bukva F and the EP временем пройдет. And then the final release in pop and indie, an interesting one. The album is Puli, Zайчики и волчата, and the group is Malishki 1822 or 1822 or 1822. I don't know what they. And there's an underscore in there, so yeah. I would be lying if I said that Tattoo's odd conquering of the West didn't coincide with my own interest in Russia beginning to bloom, which I would also, I think, has to do with it musically coinciding with me discovering the German pop artist Blümchen, but that's an entirely different story. That combination of the dual shouted vocals, the Euro techno sound, just the whole Eastern European mystique for those days, or the post-Soviet mystique, if you will. It was catchy and obvious, yet also kind of mysterious in its own way. But there was definitely still, it was identifiable. It was still Western music. But it was coming from Russia, and it just like, it was this all-powerful cocktail, right? Tattoo with all the things she said, for sure. There was a Tattoo release Maybe I'll talk about it next week, but they've just kind of gone off on other things. But there have been groups that kind of distilled some of those aspects of tattoo, like Crystal Castles and Purity Ring, who did the aggressive barked female vocals, or the light and waif-like vocals, kind of respectively. They're Crystal Castles and Purity Ring, over also electronic accompaniment. This is an art collective out, well, it's a duo. It's an art duo out of Tomsk, and they kind of just rolled all three of those. Tattoo, it kind of feels like they're riffing on some of the tattoo imagery, especially, you know, they're always pictured in these kind of matching outfits. Musically, it's somewhere between Crystal Castles and Purity Ring, though, I guess is what I would describe. And that's not at all what I was expecting from this. But this is one of those albums that this happens at least once a month. There's an album I'm kind of just avoiding because it looks just like it's going to be a disaster. But then for me, at any rate, it's like this discussion, just like, holy crap, why is nobody talking about this? If you don't know Crystal Castles, I guess I'm sorry. I feel like I talk about them every other week. There's no escaping them in the Russian music scene in 2025, at least their influence. Purity Ring, you will be forgiven for maybe not having heard of. They made a splash like a decade ago and kind of, I guess they're coming back or something. But obviously, the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that this isn't an art collective. A lot of their... I forgot to open it up. I forgot to find it. I downloaded a PDF that they have of... how to say it? Let me... I don't know if... I hope the music will still play. Let me try to find the... Let me try and find their... There it is. Yes, right. This type of art collective, which after listening to the music, it kind of all fits together. Let me skip ahead a little bit, but so I do feel like musically it's a little easy to pinpoint, but then when you get the visual reference with the art collective here, the art duo, it kind of comes together a little bit more what the whole aesthetic is that they're going for. Also, the giant play button in the middle of the JPEG is such a giant troll. It's I cannot stress that enough. So many times I hesitated to click on it because I didn't want to open a video or something. So I guess what I would say is if you ever enjoyed Crystal Castles or Purity Ring or even Tattoo, any of those groups by themselves or in any sort of combination, maybe give this album a shot, give it a look, because you can hear the influences there, but it's all of that kind of put through, again, an art duo collective with a more hyper pop edge to it. But that is the group Malishki 1822 with the album Puli, Zajciki I Volchata. So back to another candy real fast. I talked about the Mishka Kasalapy, which is not a great candy. A much better one, which is also from the Red October factory, is Alyonka. I don't know if I cannot see. Yeah, I think that was close enough. Probably. I don't know. Anyway, they've changed the baby's face too. When I first studied here, the baby had a much more distant look in her eyes. Like, she's definitely more serene in this image that I showed you. More frightening in the past. I'll put it like that. I don't know. Maybe I can find. Oh, right. Hold up. Starое. But I don't know. I know I have a picture of it somewhere. It doesn't matter. Candy-wise, this is similar to the bear one. But the outer chocolatey shell is not as thick. There's more wafer on the inside, so you actually kind of, I believe there's some chocolate wafer on the inside too. I don't know. It's all just a sugary, chocolatey mess. But you can feel the difference, and like you're not overwhelmed by the chocolate shell, which is big. It's got, something, you gotta appreciate that. So that's good. And this other one is it's kind of, I'm gonna feel disgusting after this. I don't remember the name. This is the Maska. Got some carnival masks on it. This is the batonchik, the rote front batonchik that I showed earlier. It's basically just that, covered in chocolate. So you might be noticing a trend here with a lot of the Russian candies, was that waffle covered in chocolate, or like wafer covered in chocolate, or some like weird soy nutty chocolatey soft thing. It's kind of like that with a lot of the candies. So, all right, we're gonna go back to the music. All right, we are moving on to rock and metal. Now, first up, we have the group Headstomper and their EP Tanцы на Головах, hardcore punk outfit, which is kind of a side project for a few groups here out of Moscow. This is their second EP. It's just classic, aggressive punk, hardcore beatdowns, breakdowns, sorry. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to spend too much time here. If you like old, fast, aggressive, hardcore punk.
Приходишь домой с тяжелой смены, включаешь любимый телеканал, снимаешься в такт на восьмых переменах. Целый день ты на работе страдал, есть желание послать по чертям и побороться за справедливость. Выйти на улицу гулять для меня, завалить пистолеем нагревшему быдлу. Танцы на головах, потанцуй.
They know how to groove, which is always good. You get the idea. That is the EP Танцы на Головах by the group Headstomper. Short EP, straight to the point. Really not too much to explain there. There's actually going to be a lot of EPs here with rock and metal. Actually, not that many. 4. Huh. I thought there were more. Well, I guess there's 3 more. Up next, we have the EP Bежать by the group Drillworm. Now, this is a group out of Kazan. That prior to the release went by the name of Desamorphine, which they likely had to change their name so as not to get like fined up the ass, because in Russia now, if you mention narcotics if you like marijuana, they'll like come in and just beat you over the head, because mentioning narcotics is the same as propagandizing narcotics, I guess, from a legal standpoint here. You know how laws work here. They're never really too clear about how it works. It's just more of a apply it when it's advantageous for the system. But so anyway, the group changed its name from Desamorphine to Drillworm. Which, yeah, that's Russia. Anyway, in the past, they played melodic hardcore, and that sound is definitely still here. But there's definitely more death metal energy throughout, which makes for a more varied listen. I will say the sound quality in the recording feels like it's a bit low, but that might just be on my end. I did listen to it with a different set of headphones, so when I listen to it now, I'll be able to tell you if the quality is the same that I heard. It does feel a little compressed, though, I will say. So here we got definitely more of the melodic hardcore. It's got some of the speed to it with that punk. But you can hear a little bit of the death metal influence. A little bit. I'm gonna say this is get an older called just like those little death metal squeaks. But we get back into like kind of that hardcore, more punk edge. So, like I said, it's definitely a group that comes from more of the hardcore community, but they've switched up their sound a little bit, so it's not as much of a one-trick pony, which is always good in the long term. So that is the group Drillworm. That is the EP Bejat. Okay. Oh, we're at the tab limit already. All right, next up, we have a group called Cold-Blooded Murder with the EP Смерть, всем, лицу. Lots of fun ones here. I know, I actually, understanding that this is the 30th of the 30th of October, right before Halloween, I did try to do more of the metal albums that I had, which, again, as was always the case, some of them I just tossed because they weren't very good. Typically, it's a lot of, like, just absolute garbage recordings of weird one-man black metal projects. I don't know who listens to that. So if it does feel like there's a bunch of just metal more than typical, that's part of the reason. It will be balanced out next week. So yes, this is murdercore, as the group calls it, which is a made-up genre, to be sure. Let's just be real. This is really just beat-down hardcore mixed together with death metal, and there are new metal elements mixed in for good measure. So again, kind of sounds like the description I just gave in a slight variation of Drillworm. But yeah, it's a very brutal release, which you probably can hear. But it's definitely more of the death metal sound than the hardcore sound. But like the hardcore is still very much there. In fact, maybe it's like a pretty even balance, I guess. Probably the best track on the EP, in my opinion. There's also an instrumental version of this track, which is instrumentally, it's very good. Easily instrumental. Vocals are fine. So, again, you get the idea. That is the EP Смерть, всем, лицу, or Death to Everyone's Face, or Death in Everyone's Face, by the group Cold-Blooded Murder. All right, one last EP, and I think this is like the last like really heavy one, if we will, so just kind of keep that in mind. This is the new wave of Russian death metal, which I was not familiar that there was a first wave or an original wave or multiple waves, but this is the new one, evidently. So it's death metal meets deathcore, metalcore, whatever. It's the first release from a group out of Samara. This is Earth Crusher. That's the name of the EP by a group, Mont Falcon, or Falcon. They have 3 guitarists, which not sure if that's necessary, but sure. Vocally, lots of really brutal highs and lows. Riffs and groove kind of balance out the breakdowns and just like the typical death metal onslaught. There's some solos thrown into the mix as well, which a lot of times on like more extreme metal releases, you don't really get that as much. And song structures that aren't traditionally linear, but everything still feels quite cohesive. Honestly, very heavy, and I would say like a very promising first release here. So I'm gonna get into the title track. I mean, yeah, it's deathcore, so there's gonna be a little bit vocally. Right? I know, beginning's a little rough, but there's that and again, right, just kind of, it's all over the place, that sort of non-linearness to the song structures, but it's a very heavy EP, I guess is what I'll say. I guess so, again, sort of death metal, deathcore, metalcore, whatever you want to make it, the new wave of Russian death metal, whatever. Just a very heavy release there from a new group out of the Volga region from Samara. So that is the EP Earth Crusher, or the album, I guess technically, usually, whatever. The release Earth Crusher by the group Montfaucon. Falcon. Yeah. Really good stuff. And I do believe this is like actual artwork, not AI. So love to see it in 2025. It's something got to pay attention to. All right. I wanted to transition because I wanted to also play around with the volume levels just a little bit. Okay. I also wanted to drop that. Okay, well, I guess I'll probably just screwed the volume levels all up, but it's okay. Also, my head's out. I'm like everything's out of whack today, so we're just gonna let it be. All right. Up next, we have Step, which I have to be frank is probably the worst name for a candy. This is honestly. You can still get Snickers in Russia. Snickers factory is still here. This is basically just a knockoff. It's got the same. It's a little more flat than a Snickers, but peanuts, caramel, that weird little kind of. Not really nougaty thing, but the chocolate shell. The one thing I do like about Step, though, and why I might slightly prefer it to a Snickers, I gotta say, too, I'm not like a big candy person in general, but like, yeah, more peanuts. Which, let's be real, peanuts kind of set it off. So, anyway, I was playing around with the audio levels. So if I completely screwed something up, just feel free to let me know. All right, the first album in the rock and metal category this week is from the group The Restoned, with just an absolutely fantastically wacky and long album title. Dreams from the Outside, Stories of the Astral Lizard, Volume 3. You can see the Astral Lizard's foot right here. I don't know if there will be a fourth volume. I think perhaps the artwork all fits together. I know there's an Astral Lizard album artwork where you can actually see the Astral Lizard, but honestly, what starts out as a stoner desert rock album on the first track quickly reveals its true nature, which is this is a psych rock electroacoustic desert trip. It feels like it's the type of album that would be perfect for watching the first or last colors of the day slowly work their way over the layered landscape of the United States Southwest. The Russian steppe, or like a very large expanse of grassland as well, would be a fine, a suitable replacement as well. But yeah, all of that with or without substances of your variety. So the first track definitely leads you to believe it's going to be something a little bit different from what it is. But I do love the first track. I think it's like, yeah, we get the reverb in there right away. Step might be better than Snickers. Got more of that stoner rock sound to it, right? That fuzzy. But, like already on the next track, most of that yet just drops away in favor of this, I mean, like sort of psychedelic, the Astral Lizard, right? Very chill album, though. I got no complaints about it. Also, please let me know if the sound... like I said, I was screwing around with the settings, so if I'm super loud or the music's super loud, just let me know. I mean, you get the idea. It's not like a new... Oh yeah, the sort of flute towards the end begins to make itself... begins to frequent more often. No, they don't have the Astral Lizard there, but... quite what I was expecting from this album. I will be blunt. But I do appreciate albums that have a sound that I don't hear very often. And this is definitely a sound that I do not hear hardly ever in 2025 in Russia. So even though it might not be the most advanced or the most mind-blowing or whatever you want to call it, it's good. It's fresh. It's refreshing. And I think, all things considered, it is still musically just a pretty... Okay. Alright, yeah. That's what I had been told. That's why I attempted to fix it, but... I mean, these are musicians that have been doing this for a very long time. If you open up their discography, you can kind of scroll down. Right, 2017. I'm assuming 2017 is when they uploaded all of their stuff to Spotify. So, yeah. Anyway. If you're looking for something, it's all instrumental. Looking for something. Excellent. Yeah, if you're looking for something instrumental, a little bit more laid back, a little bit, again, more classic rock, I guess, if you want, then this is probably your speed. It's Dreams from the Outside, Stories of the Astral Lizard, Volume 3, and the group is The Stoned. All right. I am going to drop the audio levels just a little bit. And I guess while I'm doing that, I might as well have another candy because I've come this far. Right now we have Zatочка, which I cannot remember what's in Zatочка. Zatочка is a swallow. And we have swallows. We have swallows on the wrapper. What is in Zatочка? So in Russian, they have this sort of candy thing. It's called like pomadka, which is like fudge, but it's not fudge. It's just a soft, sweet, sugary thing. And that is... It's not going to be in focus. That's what's in there. It's not quite marzipan. It's not quite fudge. But you can kind of get the idea, the consistency there. And this one's got a... not fruity flavor to it. Man, I don't remember. Zatочka's not bad. It's definitely better than the Bears. But, okay. We're getting closer to the end. Up next, we have... Oh, help me, Lord. This is a title which is written in like old Russian, back before the Russian alphabet nowadays is a reformed alphabet that was reformed after the revolution, blah, blah, blah. So the pre-revolutionary Russian language looks quite a bit different. I mean, you can kind of see that right here. You have the Latin letter I. You have some of these other ones. So I don't actually know how to pronounce some of this, but I think I can get my way through it. So the group is Zmey, Gorynich, which is the three-headed dragon from Russian folklore. Zmey Gorynich is the name of the group. And this is Странствия рукоблуда и сестры его Малафии. I think I got that. This is a group that is the marriage of folk music and metalcore, or at least that's how the group started out. And this is, I think, another example of what I want folk music to sound like, or folk metal to sound like. You've got a melting pot of musical ideas. Traditional female layered vocals, these sort of carnival-esque keyboards, metalcore drumming, breakdowns, power metal riffing and solos, black metal riffing, death metal, growling and barking. There's just like kind of everything going on here. Now, I'm new to the group, so this is all very entertaining to me. But I have seen people online who have been lamenting some of the changes to the group's sound over the years. But even they agree that this is still a fun album. It's quite head-spinning. There's so much going on here. The one thing I will say is the group positions this as a rock opera in 4 parts. Does it succeed in that? Not really. That doesn't really feel like there's any division. And I even saw online somebody point out that from a folklore point of view, some of the songs are not even in like the same folklore universe. They're just kind of there. So if the group, thematically, does it fit what the group is going for? Not really, but musically, everything is good here. So I'm just going to jump right into it. You'll figure it out pretty quick. Right, like that nice balance of sort of folk music and then metal end of things. But something that's just like the really brutal male vocals, and then those this whiplash back and forth. Again, musically too at the beginning, that kind of folk instrumentation, and then the really fast and intense metal stuff going on. Right, like back to that. So it feels gimmicky, but once you get into the album, you just kind of accept it. You're like, yeah, this works. It is kind of gimmicky still, but it's gimmicky in a way of like, it's just very, very, they're not attempting to like oh, haha, we're so silly and clever. Like, they just wanted to put 2 types of music together that they enjoyed, that they thought were interesting. They were earnest in their endeavors, which maybe the country rap group is as well. So again, 3 songs there, you get the idea. This is actually one of those albums too, I think, that because it mixes such intense metal with something that is just so wildly different. Music that is already kind of kitsch in its own way. It almost feels like this is one of those albums too that would be a way to get people who don't normally listen to like kind of very sort of extreme metal or intense metal, like to open that door for them as well, which is always something I think should be done, and to kind of like ease people into musical genres for those who are interested in it. So I appreciate that as well. But yes, that is the group Zmey Gorynich, and the album is Странствия рукоблуда и сестры его Малафии. Yeah. Okay. We got 3 left. I know there's 4 tabs. We'll talk about it in a little bit. This one is actually the last one I listened to this week. This is the album Era Zabvenia, and the group is Viepskaya Milya. Genre descriptions are a slippery game. With this release here was described as blackened hardcore, crust punk, and metallic hardcore. So a lot of times I try to just describe releases in relation to Western bands that like everybody in Russia and everybody in the West would recognize, assuming that you are in that genre of music. So, like for fans of Orienteer. In the case of this Petrozavodsk group, they feel like Converge in the second half of their career. So from Axe to Fall onwards to present day, sort of modern Converge. Not the first albums of Converge, but like from Axe to Fall onwards, where they started not to get less intense, but their intensity shifted. And it somehow became more user-friendly, more listener-friendly. Yeah, it's heavy as shit. But there's plenty of melodicism and dynamicism. It's just it's fast, brutal. I really like this album, and I basically had no time with it. There is a lot of Converge, I feel like, here, which is A-okay. The guitars in the background kind of like noodling around. I mean, again, is it hardcore, crust punk, black and hardcore? Yes. But even though those still feel like such niche and specific genres, even within those descriptions, it feels, if you follow metal, like such a wide variety of sounds that often get applied to even those subgenres. So, whereas I'm just like, yeah, they sound like Converge. You can hear that if you know Converge. And the story? Добрый вечер. So yeah, like I said, if you like Converge, the sort of modern Converge from like 2010 onward, then this is going to be perfect. This is the album Era Zabvenia, and the group is Wiepskaya Milia. All right. Well, somebody's off to coffee, and we are down to the final two here. All right. So, this one, I forgot to all right, hold up. I want to do this now. I'll do a little candy thing. I can edit it. Okay. So, this next album actually has a short story that goes along with it, and I realized that I forgot to include the link to the short story in the description. So I want to do that now. Can I do that now? I can. Okay. So let me quick do that. So basically, so if you go down in, all right, I'll put everything back up now. So this is the group Wildweed, and this is their release Skatamagilnik, which is like a slaughterhouse graveyard or something along those lines, or like cattle kill house, mass burial. I don't like it's. Regardless, if you go to the second to last album, in all of the links down below, there is now a short story link there. The group actually had somebody that they know who's a short story writer write a short story that goes along with the album here, and the short story is based kind of loosely around Lovecraft's like Cthulhu mythology. So it's got some of like you can kind of see that maybe a little bit from the album artwork. This is just an absolutely disgustingly thick, heavy, sticky slab of doom sludge metal out of Nizhny Novgorod. It was recorded live in studio on analog equipment, which is super too. I think that's like fantastic. Easily the heaviest thing I've heard this autumn, just in terms of like the weight, the physical weight of this music. Maybe even so far this year. Rzhev was pretty heavy earlier though. Yeah. The one thing, I'll play it here in a second. This is just like, if you like doom or sludge metal, this is what you've been waiting for. The one aspect of the music here, which I think could be a little much for some people, is that the vocals go for like this really guttural sound, which I personally found a bit irritating at times. It would be nice if they if they switched it up a little bit. But yes. Oh, I forgot to mention too, with the short story, it is in Russian and in English. So regardless of whether you know Russian or whether you know English, you can read the short story that comes along with Skatamagilnik. So you got yourself a little Lovecraftian short story right before Halloween and a doom sludge metal album to go on top of it. So it's like, what more could you possibly want? We're just going to jump right into the title track too, because I feel like this is a pretty good place. I'm actually going to go grab something to drink. I'll be right back. You've got, well, let me get you into it. I'm not going to abandon you just yet. You can hear the vocals, right? Sometimes, like right here, they feel like they're buried so far down in the mix, or like underneath the weight of everything else, that you don't really notice them. There are other points on the album though where it's a little bit more obvious. They're a little bit more front and center. The first track is a little bit like that. So just heavy, sludgy. Alright, I'll leave you with Portal here. 1 second, I'll be right back. In my absence, you were able to get a pretty good idea of what this album is all about. So, the doom sludge thing, I get it. Not everybody's cup of tea, but it is really good. I had a really good time with it. It's a doom sludge album, just kind of sucks you into it. It's got a short story. I love that. Like, just like the whole package. So that is the group Wildweed with the album Skatamagielnik, which is honestly a word I had never seen before. Always cool too. All right. Final album of the week. I know there's another tab, but again, like I said, we'll get to that. Final album of the week. I know this has been a very long stream, but I've been eating a lot of candy too, so what are you going to do? LESNIK is back. I know I just talked about them like a week or two ago. They had a split, but they're back. They just dropped a full length. I had no idea they were working on one, which was something that I was hoping for when they had the split. The song, which is the second track here, when I heard it on the split, I was just like, I really hope that they have a full length coming out in the near future, and here we are. The album is Pohod. Pohod is the Russian word for hike or trek. So the album artwork here also is fitting. These guys are out of the Ural Mountain area, Ekaterinburg, I believe. So also fitting as well. The one track from the split from of a few weeks ago, this entire album delivers on the sound that was promised there. We've got like these really heavy slamming sections and delicate, morose and beautiful, atmospheric, melodic, just like a whole slew of dichotomies that don't clash but complement each other on this. I'm just going to play a little bit here. This is actually the track that was on the split from a few weeks back. So I'm just going to start with that. This is an album which describes a hike, a trek through the Ural Taiga. The awesomeness of those vast expanses, the undulating forests that you can see when you luck upon an elevated spot with a clearing, the tattoo of raindrops on the synthetic fabric of a tent, the awkward lumbering gait of a brown bear making its way along some overgrown path that's only visible to itself. This is the soundtrack to being in the forest. It's the sound of like being out there far away from the night lights of the city in absolute darkness and looking up into the night sky and seeing the yawning gulf of the cosmos and falling into it in one form or another. But it's also an album which is just as much about the journey back from the hike into the forest and that pull back to civilization, that wanting to get back to home and to friends and family, loved ones, all of that. It's that dichotomy that is there throughout all of the music on this album. And this is a very, very good, great post-rock, post-metal album, post-whatever album. It's instrumental, obviously. This is the Bear song. It's literally called Bear, so just imagine a bear. This is an album, a musical statement from a group that over the last 2 years has matured musically so quickly and extensively. It's kind of amazing, like to go back and listen to their old sound and then to listen to this album. There's been a massive amount of growth and refinement of the sound. And this is an album which I think feels like it should be something of a breakthrough moment for the group. At the very least, in rock circles. I don't expect this to like punch through into the mainstream at any rate, but like in rock and metal groups, even maybe internationally in post-rock sort of communities, this feels like an album which should be getting some attention. And hopefully it does. This is the track Satellite, obviously dedicated to the night sky. It has like the gentle delicateness on a lot of the tracks you would expect of post-rock, but it has that deep, heavy end. Russian Circles is by far one of my probably favorite groups just in general. Like, I can listen to them at all times, and they left a massive, I think, impression on a lot of the post-metal scene for sure. And I feel like you can hear some of the Russian circles here as well too, which is not a bad thing. This is the track Spouse. So again, that's sort of being far away from home and reminiscing and wanting to be back away from your travels, back to the creature comforts of home and the warmth there. Not to say that it's a necessity, but I feel like last year, at least when it comes to instrumental music, when there is a theme that the music is revolving around, it feels like things really come together. Last year, I gotta the Шумы штормовых широт. They released an album all about like the storms on the Baltic Sea up by St. Petersburg, and it just had the energy and the rhythm and the chaotic nature of an agitated Baltic Sea in the spring or late autumn. Translated wonderful into an album. Pohod here from LESNIK, I think, is another great idea. This idea of trying to take a hike, a backpacking trip in the forest through the mountains and translate that musically into an album. I think that's a wonderful idea. It's such a simple, basic idea, but they were able to execute it so well. And I'll be honest, I have a soft spot for post-rock, post-metal. But I think that's mainly because it leans into those ideas of like romantic music, in the sense of the Romanticism movement, where they attempted to tell a story musically without words, just simply through what the music was doing, trying to convey that idea with maybe this title to a song, and then just let the music do the rest of it. And I feel like post-rock, post-metal, when done correctly and when done properly, is modern day romantic music. And I think that's like, we're used to that in soundtracks, but that's accompanied visually. This, you have just the title, and then you're just supposed to feel. And I think they did like a hell of a job here. So I'm gonna wrap it up with that. That is my top pick for the week. It's an album that I didn't know was coming out, that I just kind of stumbled upon like Friday or Saturday last week when I was going through, and which I listened to a good number of times, and I think it's an album which I will come back to a good number of times as well. Okay, there's one last thing musically that I want to share, but before we get to that, I have to remember how to transition. I gotta share a little bit more candy. Now, obviously, I got a new beverage. This is Lost Pumpkins. This is also from Gothenburg. Jaws is the brewery there. It's probably, in my opinion, it's my favorite one in the country. So, just kind of a weird little shout out there. The candies in question, though, are two. I had more, but I'm not going to eat all of them because this is already getting out of hand. So, first one I have here is Citron, which is a little chocolatey guy, like all of them have been at this point in time. But inside, there's like a little sour, lemony filling. Again, it's that weird, not quite fudge, not quite marzipan, somewhere in between style texture. But you would think that the lemon and the chocolate might clash a little bit, but it actually works out pretty well. I'm not going to lie. But the one I'm going to finish with is a Stone Cold classic. I feel like if you live here, you probably know and enjoy. Oh, yeah. Citron is great. I don't eat it very often, but my all-time favorite candy here in Russia has got to be halva в шоколаде. Now, halva is mashed up sunflower seeds. This is effectively the Russian version of Reese's peanut butter cups, right? Peanut butter cups have the sort of peanut, nutty flavor to it. Halva is the same thing, but with sunflower seeds. The difference being, the reason peanut butter cups are smoother and creamier on the inside. First of all, look at how fat this thing is. This thing is massive. And it's not like there's a ton of chocolate around it. This is by and large the sunflower seed filling. Now, obviously, it's sweetened a little bit. So you do get the nutty flavor and everything like that. Yeah, end of story, knows what's going on. Halva in chocolate is hands down. It's just like, obviously there are some people who don't like it. Obviously, if you have a nut allergy, then it's probably not for you. But it's not as sweet as a Reese's cup. The chocolate is the same type of chocolate that you eat with like all the Russian candies, but there's like that thick slab of slightly sweetened mashed sunflower seed stuff on the inside. It's fantastic. You can just straight up buy the halva, which is the sunflower seed mash type stuff. You can just buy bricks of that in the shops, which is also super delicious, but God knows that you would probably gain, I don't know how many, you would gain a lot of weight if you bought that regularly. So, Batonchik sportivny? No, I don't think so. I had the Rot Front Batonchik earlier. So, I don't know the sporty one. But, so yes, I actually do have, now this is probably past its expiration date. I picked this up in the winter time when I was back in the States. I do have a Reese's peanut butter. It's supposed to look like a Christmas tree. I guess. Reese's peanut butter cup is really good though too. Jesus. There's something to be said about both of them. Like, Reese's peanut butter cup, the halva and chocolate, it's kind of like the Reese's at times, it's like a little too sweet at sometimes. But depending on your mood, it might just hit the spot. Halva and chocolate also could be a little bit sweeter. But at times you don't really want something that sweet. You want something that's a little bit nuttier. So, I don't know. Both really good. Yeah, I had the... Yeah, of course. I love Rot Front. It's one of the best. Okay, so this is not Russian music, but tomorrow is Halloween, and this has been going on. The stream has been going on forever. I'm going to finish it up here in a second. I got chocolate all over my keyboard, but I guess that's the dangers of... Yeah, okay, whatever. I'll deal with that later. It is Halloween tomorrow, and I don't know if tomorrow or on the weekend. I do want to make like a video where I wander and chatter a little bit about Halloween and how that celebration is not going to disappear from the minds of young people in Russia, just because there's nothing to take its place. And this is a time of the year when you want something silly and dumb to celebrate. If you don't like scary things, just don't buy into it. If you want to have some fun, do with it. But I'll talk about that more later. For me, this year I've been listening to Russian music, just like, you know that. This is the 40-somethingth week. And that's it. I've only been listening to really Russian music this year. Aside from in the summertime when I was out cycling and I was listening to my iPod, where it's just like old songs, obviously. So typically in the past, there was a group that I spent all October listening to. And I think like there's a good reason for it. Obviously, lyrically, their songs are hyper fixated on vampires and demons and the end of the world and this and that. It is the grotesque, ridiculous Saturday matinee horror film schlock when it comes to their musical output. And that group is, and I love that group, and obviously they lost their lead singer a few years back, but they kept trekking on. That group is the Black Dahlia Murder. It's like it's melodic death metal, deathcore, whatever you want to call it. They have one, and so I would typically in October in the past, that's like the group I would just listen to. I would just spend most of my time listening to the Black Dahlia Murder because they've got songs about werewolves, they've got songs about vampires, they've got songs about the earth getting sucked into a black hole void type thing. Like just, just horror movie type vibes. Serial killers or like warlords in battle. But they have one track which is, in my opinion, the absolute hands down best song about Halloween, because it's from the point of view of like some ghouls or demons on Earth, and Halloween is the one day of the year when they can come out and revel, but it also feels a little bit like it could be kind of maybe written from the perspective of, anyway, it's called A Shrine to Madness, and since I'm talking about music, since Halloween's tomorrow, I'm going to end with that today while I have some pumpkin beer and eat some candy. So this is off their 2011 album, Ritual. It is the opening track. And yeah, I still stand by this as obviously the theme from Halloween by John Carpenter. Stone Cold classic. Rob Zombie's got some great songs. The Misfits, of course, have. But in terms of a track which just sort of encapsulates the sort of darker and sort of like scarier sound of the holidays without it being like something from a horror soundtrack, I feel like this is just, for me, the embodiment of Halloween in musical form. So it's got a very ominous build up as well too. Pretty sure I saw these guys like twice here in Moscow too. They used to come here regularly, which was phenomenal. Like the crowds here loved them. I mean, everybody loved the Black Dahlia Murder. If you go to Black Dahlia show, it was great. Lost Pumpkins. not bad. I know pumpkin beer is not really a big thing here for various reasons, but love the chorus. Also not connected to music, but anybody watched the show Dexter in the past, has not seen Resurrection, check it out. Probably gonna get copyright struck for this, but yeah, I mean, it, like, the thing I love about this song is it's got the mention of the carved pumpkins, swirling leaves in the autumn air, and then this whole idea of, like, of waiting for one specific night of the year when you can, like, these, like, evil spirits come festive, like they're running around having their festive little time because that's the one evening when they can go out and have their evil little ways. Yeah, the new season of Dexter, maybe the best. Really good. Oh, and they mentioned candy rotting her teeth to the gums. No, you shan't kill Halloween, for we bore it in our blood. And that's literally how the track ends. So that has been that is it music wise this week. Yes, with regards to Dexter, I do think that there have been a lot of really highs and lows with that show, and I had mixed expectations with the latest season, but I think they managed to. The ending summed it up perfectly, and there's no spoilers, but like the ending basically was a wink to the audience, because I think after years of people complaining about things they don't like, or this was strange with the character, this ending didn't work, and it feels like the showrunners, the writers were just like, okay, fine, we'll do Dexter. So yes. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up. Yeah, obviously the third season. After the third season, it kind of was up and down, but the new one is very good. But you kind of need to have seen a lot of them. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up. Next week actually will still be October music, because tomorrow is the 31st. It's the final day of the month, and that means that the final batch of releases will basically be coming out Well, now it's already after midnight, so that means that they will, by and large, have been uploaded to streaming platforms right now, which means I still have a week to get through a number of releases that I have been meaning to. And then after this week, which was so rock and metal heavy in the grand scheme of things, I will probably be switching back and leaning more heavily into, based on the playlist, pop and indie, and maybe electronic music as well. But we'll have to see. I don't actually know what's coming out on the 31st. Could be anything. It could be more rock and metal. Who knows? Everyone, have a good evening or good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. Happy Halloween, since I guess I went over into that. And yeah, y'all take care of yourselves. I'll be back next Thursday at 10 p.m. And I'll be back on Sunday and on Wednesday at 9 p.m. to talk news. So until then, take care of yourselves. I will see you when I see you. And yeah, until then. Пока-пока.